These are the Alabama farmlands that 12-year-old Sherry Lynn Marler loved. Growing up on a 400-acre property outside of Greenville, she was known by locals as Little Farmer. Her greatest pride in life was that she could run a tractor by herself, and that if her family needed help toiling under the sun, she was the one everyone knew could get the job done with a smile on her face. At 5'4", she was barely tall enough to see over the steering wheel of her family's tractor. But that didn't deter her from spending all day, every day, working out in the rolling fields where her family grew wheat, corn, soybeans, and oats. In the summer of 1984, Sherry was reportedly as happy as her family had ever seen her. Her mother, Betty Stringfellow, distinctly remembers an instance where Sherry burst into the house, beaming from ear to ear. She told her, "Mama, Mama, I just put my 1,000th mile on my moped." Sherry loved using her moped to dart around the red dirt roads in her rural community, and she was eager to turn 13 so she would be old enough to get a three-wheeler. Tragically, she never got that opportunity. On the morning of June 6, 1984, Sherry reportedly woke up on the couch. She had given a relative who was visiting her room for the night, but she didn't mind. According to her family, she awakened as soon as the sun rose every morning anyway. That fateful morning, she was up at dawn as soon as her stepfather, Raymond Stringfellow, started brewing his first pot of coffee. Shirley's mother and her biological father, Ralph, had broken up when she was much younger, leaving Raymond to raise Sherry as his own. He had 3 children from his previous marriage, and Sherry had a teenage brother, Larry, so the house was always buzzing with activity. Sherry loved the quiet mornings, watching the sun rise before anyone else was up. Sherry and her stepfather headed out into the fields like they did every morning. That morning, however, they ran into a problem. Their combine, equipment used to harvest grains, wasn't running. Raymond realized they would need a loan to replace it, so he told Sherry that after they checked on the rest of the crops, he was going to go to the bank, about 12 miles away in downtown Greenville. When he was prepared to head out, Sherry reportedly stumbled to get her shoes on. When Raymond asked where she was going, she smiled up at her stepfather and said, "With you." The two made the drive downtown. When they arrived, they parked behind the bank in a large parking lot. It was about 9:30 a.m. on that warm summer day when Sherry reportedly asked Raymond for money to buy a soda. He gave her $1 and sent her on her way, while he went inside to negotiate a loan with the banker. Sherry ran across this street to what used to be a gas station in this building. There are no reports on if she was seen inside the gas station, nor by any passers-by. As soon as she crossed the road, she essentially vanished. Raymond returned to the car from the bank after about 15 minutes and was surprised to see Sherry was still gone. He assumed she must have run into a classmate at the gas station, but as the minutes ticked on, he got more and more ticked off. After waiting about 10 minutes, Raymond got out of the truck and began to call for Sherry. Despite thorough searching, he couldn't find her at the gas station or on any nearby streets. Panic began to set in. By noon that day, he had filed a missing persons report, and professional searches for Sherry were underway. Within 24 hours, all of Sherry's relatives and friends had been contacted, but no one had heard from her. Planes surveyed the town and nearby fields, including the family farm, but there was not a single sign of her. Betty, Raymond, and Larry were pacing at home, going mad with worry. Naturally, all of them were involved in the searches, but each day came with more questions than answers. By July 16th, the Montgomery Advertiser announced that law enforcement believed that foul play was involved in her disappearance. Surprisingly, both Betty and Raymond declined to take a lie detector test. In response to pressure to do so by local media, Raymond told reporters, "We haven't done anything we're ashamed of. We didn't do anything to prompt Sherry to run away. If she is somewhere, I didn't put her there." It seems that local law enforcement believed Raymond because both he and Betty were cleared as suspects in spite of refusing to take a polygraph test. It should be noted that polygraph tests aren't admissible in court and can be unreliable, and that declining one isn't suspicious in itself. However, it certainly rubbed some locals the wrong way, especially at Larry's high school. Reportedly, rumors about Sherry's disappearance became so inescapable and vitreous that Larry quit school in the fall of 1984 when he was just 16 years old. About a month into the search, calls began to come in reporting sightings of Sherry. One time, she was reportedly seen in St. Stephen's, Alabama, about a 2-hour drive away from where she was last seen. Shortly after this call, another person called to report a girl matching Sherry's appearance at a truck stop in Conley, Georgia, 2 hours in the other direction. About a month later, as 1984 came to a close, another caller stated to have seen Sherry at a mall in New Orleans, 4 hours southwest of her hometown. Witness statements are frequently unreliable, but there was something about these three that stuck out to law enforcement. In each instance, the girl matching Sherry's description was seen with an older man, described as about 50 years old and 5'8". He had a husky build, wrinkles around his eyes, and a weathered complexion. The man was reported as not having much of an expression, but sadly, in all three cases, the woman matching Sherry's description was said to be noticeably upset, with a dazed and disheveled appearance. The fact that all three of the leads are so similar, in spite of being from different callers over 100 miles away from each other, makes them probable. But was the woman Sherry, or just someone who looked like her? Unfortunately, law enforcement still don't have that answer. Newspaper articles report that there were also sightings of this girl traveling with a trucker in Mississippi and Florida, though none of these are reported on her Charlie Project or NamUs profile. Ken Flowers, the Greenville police captain, told a local newspaper that this case was the most baffling in his 11-year career, and as the years passed, it has only grown more so. In 1986, a person called from Arizona to report that they knew something about Sherry's disappearance. Before police could respond, however, they hung up. From there, leads went from being a trickle to utterly non-existent. Sherry's family was forced to go on with life, unsure of what happened to her. In 2003, 20 years after his stepdaughter's disappearance, Raymond Stringfellow passed away. On his deathbed, he held Betty's hands and told her that he didn't know what happened to Sherry, and that he wished he could get out of bed, find her, and bring her back to his wife. To this day, Betty is still actively looking for her daughter. If you thought her disappearance was strange before, this is where it gets stranger. There is a Facebook page titled Sherry Lynn Marler, Still Missing. Betty was an active participant in this group, encouraging the woman who runs it, who we will refer to as R. With a group of other women from Alabama, R has taken it upon herself to investigate the disappearance and likely murder of Sherry. During her search, she claimed she came upon a family friend of the Stringfellows, who she considered to be a likely suspect. The supposed suspect had passed, but his wife was still alive. When R spoke to the wife, she gave R a box of photographs from the farm they once owned near Sherry's farm. The photos were her husband's, and she had never looked at them. Folded up in the box of photos, she discovered this. To her, the object in the bottom left corner undeniably looks like a head. If you know anything about pigs, you know that they will eat absolutely anything. There have been a number of cases where victims have been disposed of in this manner, including by serial killers like Robert Picton in Canada. To many, this head looks like a match for Sherry Lynn Marler, and that isn't the only photograph linked to Sherry Lynn Marler's disappearance. This photo was discovered by Sherry's brother Larry in a Bible in an empty trailer in Butler County. It is undeniable that the woman laying on the bed in the photo is Sherry, but no one knows who the girl she is with is. Larry believes that the photo may have been taken after Sherry's disappearance. To this day, the truth of these photos and of Sherry's fate remains a mystery. Age-progressed photos have been created to show what she would look like today at 53 years old. After all this time of holding on, her family deserves closure. If you know what happened to Sherry, or have any tips related to the photos or her case in general, please contact the Greenville, Alabama Police Department at 334-382-3107.